Hello, everybody. I'd like to read a short story I wrote about growing up in South Georgia, specifically about my paternal grandfather. It's called Granddad Discovers Religion. And at the end of the story, I'm going to try to do a little something different, so if you hang out to that point, we'll see how that goes. This is called Granddad Discovers Religion. I could tell it was close to 5 a.m. by the sounds of pots and pans being banged around in the kitchen. Granddad didn't worry about how noisy he was as he prepared breakfast. I was spending the summer with my grandparents on their farm to help them raise and gather their 30-acre tobacco field. It had to be cropped once a week during growing season and took the entire summer. This was Sunday, however, and we didn't have to be at church for several hours. But Granddad still served breakfast at 6 a.m. 7 days a week. Either be at the table or miss out. Simple as that. He wasn't being unreasonable. He just didn't have time to dilly-dally around. There was always work to be done. That even included chores after church on Sunday. Grandmother didn't mind the noise he made because that was one meal she didn't have to cook. Ever. He made breakfast every day for their entire 76-year marriage. It may have been the same meal each morning, but both the food and his intentions were good. He would call us to the table when he was finished cooking, and he always pulled out grandmother's chair for her. I could see both love and respect between them. The love I felt seemed to make the food taste even better. Wow, I thought, enough food and love to go around. What a start to the day. However, on this particular morning, I intended to stay in bed for a while and risk missing breakfast. But something kept waking me. I started getting whiffs of frying eggs, bacon, tomato gravy, grits, and toast. I could hear the bacon sizzling in the cast iron skillet clear down the hallway to my bedroom. My head really wanted to stay in bed, but my stomach told me it was time to get up. We shared a delicious breakfast. Then Granddad and I washed the dishes while Grandmother enjoyed her coffee. He treated her like a queen each morning to help her start her day. And once she started, she worked like a dog the rest of the day. I learned a lot about consideration from their relationship. They had married when she was only 14 years old, and she had their first of their two children a year later. I guess that was a ripe old age for childbearing in those days. Monday came and found us busy getting the Massey Ferguson tractor fueled and the canvas cover stretched over the giant tobacco harvester in preparation for Tuesday. This was the day each week we cropped the ripe leaves from the plants, and the canvas would keep the direct sun off of the 10 workers required to operate the harvester. The South Georgia sun was merciless during the summer months. He'd round up the crew, and we'd be in the field by daylight, and often still be in there until after dark. I remember we'd sing off and on throughout the day as we worked. We'd hang the day's crop in a tobacco barn and flue cure it for several days. It would later be moved on a foggy morning from the barn to a pack house, as we called it. I say a foggy morning because there had to be moisture in the air before being moved, or it would crumble to nothing. He would determine if the tobacco had come in order, as it was called, before we moved a single leaf. Well, anyway, we spent a lot of time in the pack house preparing the tobacco for market. First, we had to take the tobacco off the sticks we'd tied it on in the field and place it on a burlap sheet in a circle, stems turned inward, where we left a hole in the middle like a donut, a 250-pound donut. That's what each sheet had to weigh at the tobacco warehouse auction, and we had to lift each one up to the scales to check its weight. Then we'd drag the sheet to another room, call it ready for market, and start on the next sheet. This task was performed over and over. One day, as we worked in the pack house taking the tobacco from the sticks, I asked Granddad what I was making per stick, and he answered, "A penny a stick, son." I then turned away and declared that I quit. I soon felt what turned out to be a tobacco stick break across my shoulders as I was walking away. I'm sure it was a rotten stick, but he'd made his point. I was immediately reemployed. I enjoyed the days we took sheets of tobacco to town once we had a pickup truckload, which was about 12 to 14 sheets. I got to ride to town on top of the tobacco and back in the empty bed of the truck. I remember farmers lined up 20 or 30 trucks deep, waiting to unload their crops in the warehouse for the next weekly auction. That took a while, so the youngsters had time for goofing off. Spare time was a rare commodity for a child living on a farm in those days. My Uncle Dan and Aunt Dolly operated a hamburger stand inside the warehouse. Each summer, they'd come up from Florida to operate the little stand. I know I was hungry from hard work, but I swear those were the best burgers I ever put in my mouth. I've never tasted a better burger to this day. Along with tobacco, Granddad also raised hogs, hundreds of them. He had acquired many brood sows with which to replenish his stock for the market. My job was to get each sow into a breeding shed he'd built just before she had her piglets. There was always several sows to keep a watchful eye on at any given time. I remember once overlooked a sow and didn't put her up in time. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was a little preoccupied with that evening's plans with friends, so I was in a hurry to finish my chores. I failed to get her into the farrowing shed for one reason or another. I could give you 1,000 reasons, but Granddad didn't want to hear one of them. She delivered 16 piglets somewhere in the surrounding swamp Saturday night or Sunday morning, as I discovered after church. Granddad simply instructed me to find the sow. I knew I'd have to haul her feed every day for as long as she was nursing. I walked out across the field and into the swamp. I had been searching for about an hour when the urge grew to relieve myself. The more I walked, the stronger the urge became. I had been walking along a fence line covered in blackberries and eating them as I searched. Now they were exacting revenge. I walked over to a gallberry bush not far from the fence and began to squat down. I had barely gotten my pants down to my ankles when a 500-pound sow charged me from that very bush beside me. I had found the sow, or she had found me, and I was way too close to her brood. She was saving her babies, and I was saving me as we both headed for that fence at full speed, both with honest intentions, and of course all I could do was bunny hop real fast. Just before she caught me, I reached the fence. I hurled myself over it and landed hard on the other side. It took the breath from me momentarily, but that sow would have taken much more than that. She paced on the other side of the fence, frothing at the jowls and all red-eyed. All this because I had shunned my responsibility. Lesson learned. And also, I learned that day that in life, each jump you take is a leap of faith. So give it all you got. Sometimes you just can't afford to come in second place. Just ask that sow. After each tobacco auction, time permitting, Granddad would take us fishing. I can remember the first time I saw him grub for worms before we went to the pond. He told me to get a container ready to collect the worms as they came up from the ground. Right, I thought. He drove a piece of tobacco stick tightly into the ground and began rubbing a brick back and forth across the top of it. To my amazement, worms began coming from their beds all around me. I quickly collected enough for our trip to the pond. My granddad was always a good man, but he wasn't a Christian. That was until the day he met Jesus. He was plowing and preparing a neighbor's field for planting since the neighbor was sick. As I said, he was a good man to begin with. But one fateful day, he added Jesus to the equation, and his life was changed forever. I was riding the nose of the tractor as he plowed. I was watching all the birds that were attracted to the freshly dug ground. All of a sudden, he brought the tractor to a halt, turned it off, and stepped down. He knelt right there in the dirt, looked up, and began singing. He sang old gospel songs for quite some time as he cried tears of joy at what or who he'd found. And he'd found all his answers. From that moment on, Granddad's life was complete. He couldn't read it all and he wanted to start reading the Bible, so he came up with a plan. I'd begin reading the Bible nightly and keep my finger under the words as I read them. He'd watch and learn. It felt good to help him learn something for a change. He had taught me so many things through the years. He used sight recognition to learn to read proficiently in just 3 weeks. He became an evangelist and preached for the rest of his life. I remember the day Granddad left this earthly existence and gained his heavenly wings. Sometimes when I'm on my tractor and happen to look up at the clouds, I think of Granddad. And if I really listen, it seems I can hear angels singing with Granddad's voice slightly out of tune and louder than all the rest. Sing on, Granddad. Now I'm going to try to do a little tune that I wrote. Goes with this story. It's called There Was Always Love. Well, we used to get up at 2 a.m. on the back of harvest day. The barns are empty, then refill and hired hands to pay. He round up all the crew in his old pickup truck and turn out a good harvest with a little luck. Well, those times were hard, there was never enough, but on Grandpa's farm there was always love. Well, the songs we'd sing as we worked still echo in my mind. Learn to sing in harmony, try to stay in time. Well, the voices are all hushed now, farm has been sold. Grandpa's not growing crops, he's growing old. Well, those times were hard, there was never enough, but on Grandpa's farm there was always love. Yes, there was always love. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed and have a great day.